Welcome, everybody, into another edition of Trust the Mics, Sixers podcast. Mike Gill, MKB, getting you ready for another week with the Sixers coming off an exciting win last night, fighting back down all night long. And then it was Mad Max bringing them back. Some big shots throughout the night. We'll talk about Maxey and the squad as we look at another edition of Trust the Mics here. Mike Gill, MKB, what's going on, my man? How are you?
What's up, Mike? Doing well. How are you?
All is well, man. I mean, so much stuff going on that we're going to dive into, but I want to take a look just quickly at the game last night, and you take a look at that win over the Clippers. It's another game where they're down, and they got to come fighting back. Now, this isn't a great Clippers team. We've been talking a lot about getting down to many of these teams and then having to kind of fight your way back. It certainly shows that this team has the fight in them. But what a performance by Maxey, man. We got to start thinking about, I know it's really, really early, but you start to look at like these first quarter, I'm talking about first quarter of the season, not first quarter of a game, of guys who are going to start to infiltrate that MVP conversation. And the way he's going right now, you got to start wondering, what his possibilities are to be in that conversation.
Yeah, Mike. I mean, he's definitely in that conversation early in the season, and credit to him for taking his game to really another level this season and kind of seizing the reins with the uncertainty with Joel, the uncertainty of Paul George. Like, those guys were brought in to be the focal point of the team. Obviously, things didn't work out that way. Maxey talked about how last season and the losing and the general vibe around the team was really tough on him. He worked really hard over the offseason as he does every year, and really came back this year and put the team on his back with his play, and he's led them, and he's definitely put himself in that MVP conversation early in the season. There's not too many players across the league's landscape right now, Mike, playing better ball than TYRESE Maxey.
Maxey's MVP odds right now, plus 4,000. I mean, he is a long shot by that, but he's not a long shot by where he's at. Jokic, 1. SGA is 2. Luke is 3. Giannis is 4. And Maxey is 5. So he is in the top 5 right now. Right outside of that is Cade Cunningham, Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. But he's ahead of some of those guys, and you keep pumping up the numbers, 39.6 assists, 5 35-point games already this year. He had only 7 last year. If this team keeps winning and it's because of him, you're going to start to see him creep up that list, I think. I mean, because he was probably, I don't know what he started the season at, but I would have to imagine he was such a long shot. And if this Sixers team stays in the top 4 or 5, you got to start thinking about putting a couple dollars down on this man. But what a game last night. That step back, he hit a 3 from about where Matt Cord sits. I mean, at one point of that game, it was unbelievable. Now, I thought we talked about it last week, in some of these big moments in the games, he sometimes forces some shots. If he can start to make some of those shots and start to be big in those bigger late-time moments, because those would be some of the moments that he might need to get into that top 3 and then possibly become a real candidate.
Yeah, it's always good to have a couple of signature moments, Mike. And I think to me, that's like the one area this season where there's still a little bit of room to be desired with his game in terms of like the shot selection down the stretch. And to me, it's not even about making the shots. I feel like sometimes he gets a little bit of tunnel vision down in like the clutch moments of these close games where he's looking at the rim and he's drawing so much attention from the opposing defenses. They were doubling him last night. They're sending traps at him. It's a good opportunity for him to spray the ball around too and look for some other guys. So I think he could be a little better in those clutch situations. But overall, I mean, that's splitting hairs. He's been phenomenal this season, and he lives for those clutch moments, Mike, which is the special thing. I think you've seen athletes in the past, NBA players, where the lights are brightest, the game's on the line. Maybe that's not where they perform the best. They don't want to be taking that shot. Maxey's the opposite. I mean, he wants the ball in his hands in those situations. He's going to take the shot and live with the results, and you really can't help but just respect that approach.
So you just mentioned like getting some help. Paul George was back last night. He had the first 5 points of the game. He hit that three, which was a catch and shoot three. That was good to see. It was a Maxey pass on the wing, and he just caught, shot. Those are the kind of things that you want to see from Paul George. Not all the dribble, catch, shoot. Can you make that three? He does it the first time. He had the second basket. Not a big offensive night from him. And I don't know what it showed that he'll bring to this team, but I said at the beginning of the year, I wasn't all that anticipatory for what he would do for this team. Now, as the team has played without him with some success and you see what they lack, I think what they lack is what George can add. I've had a little bit more anticipation for him to come back, and I think he'll fit in pretty nicely as he kind of rolls into this. Did have 7 rebounds last night. I think that's an area where he should help out as well. But if he could catch, shoot that three, that will be a big, in my mind, probably second or third scorer. They don't need him to be first or second, but if he's kind of like a 2B, like Maxey and Grimes are cooking one night, then you're the next guy. Like, I feel like he could fit into that role if he's willing to do it.
Yeah, Mike, I think it's perfect for him, honestly, at this point in his career, because they have the firepower where they don't need him to go out and score 20-plus every night, like you're saying. To me, if he can be a high-level 3-and-D guy, he's a perfect fit for this roster. That's what they need. They have a guard-heavy backcourt when you're talking about Maxey, Edgecombe, McCain, and Grimes, and even Oubre. They're pretty deep in the front court. Obviously, Joel, Drummond, Bona, Barlow, Walker. The one area on this roster where they're a little bit thin is the perimeter. And in today's NBA, like a 3-and-D guy is so important. And that's all they need him to be at this point. A guy that can contribute defensively, knock down shots, and space the floor on the other end. Maybe occasionally he can turn back the clock, Mike, and put up 20.
That's all
25.
you need, though, right?
But that's on a daily basis. They just need the defense and the floor spacing, like almost like a Mikal Bridges type role. If he can play that, I think he'll be a very valuable, addition to this team.
That's the big thing, though, is they don't need him to score 25, 28 every night. You maybe only need it every once in a while. If Maxey's on a heater, and look, Maxey's a young kid. I remember talking about this a couple of years ago, and I was off, man. When they were talking about trading Maxey for Dame Lillard, I was like, you tell me Maxey can average 30-plus a game? Like, there's no way. He's not Dame Lillard. You make that trade. This was at a time where the Sixers felt like Embiid was right in his prime, and he needed a veteran player to kind of be his, joker. And that's why I was like, look, I like Maxey. I'm not, hating on Maxey, but is he going to be a 30-point-a-game scorer? Like, I figured Dame Lillard would be a 30-point-a-game scorer for those years, for still a couple more years. Turns out he's broken down, and Maxey's turned into a 30-point-a-game scorer. This is, unbelievable. So I'll take the L on that. I didn't see a 30-point-a-game scorer. He is really – and I think there's more. I think there's more in his game because, he's not getting calls. He's still a little reckless around the rim. He takes bad shots late in games and still scored 30 a night. The question is, can he, like getting Paul George back, will that have him say, all right, I got a guy now that can really help me out? Like maybe he doesn't trust that Edgecombe or Grimes are really ready to be that secondary guy or Oubre, but maybe he thinks George can be that guy. I know he thinks Embiid can be that guy.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I think he does, view that way. But I also think Maxey is just pedal to the metal this season. Like he's ready to put anybody on his back and just lead the team. But George, to me, is a guy that definitely is obviously respected in that locker room. And then Maxey can look at it and be like, hey, you've been through battles. You have the experience. We can lean on you a little bit in some of these tougher situations. And you can get us buckets. I mean, to take some of that scoring load off of TYRESE Maxey, I think is important. Obviously, Joel, when he comes back, will do that. But Paul George, even just, being able to knock down a few shots a game, I think will help this offense. At times when it would be stagnant, it's another guy that can get a basket. And he can create his own shot too, Mike. I think that's kind of, lost a little bit in the Paul George conversation. Like, yeah, he's still a good shooter and a good floor spacer, but he's a guy that was always able to capitalize on mismatches because he's taller than some wings. He's pretty explosive off the dribble, like a quick first step. He's a guy that can, if the offense is bogging down, Maxey's not in there, he's having a tough time, you can give the ball to Paul George and ask him to go get you a bucket. It doesn't have to be like spoon-fed to him too. So I think that's a wrinkle, obviously as the season goes on that they could tap into a little bit in terms of his ability to just go and get his own bucket. It looks like we lost Mike here for a second. Some technical difficulties going on the Trust the Mikes podcast. bear with us for a second here. Sorry about this. So Mike looks like his computer got little crash action going on there. He's trying to hop back onto the stream as we speak right now. Should be a couple minutes. In the meantime, I was going to talk a little bit about that game last night that Mike and I had just started to talk about, the Clippers game, pulling out the 110, 108 victory over the Clippers last night. Obviously, talking about Maxey, I think there's a couple other guys that we really need to kind of touch on after that Clippers game last night. Specifically, a guy I wanted to give a shout out to was Andre Drummond, who I think has been really impressive and important for the Sixers this season. I know he was kind of a guy that was an afterthought coming in this season. A lot of people over the offseason didn't even necessarily want him to pick up his player option for this season, thought that the roster spot could probably be used, better elsewhere than on a veteran big man who, in fairness to those people, didn't look great last season. He definitely, obviously was dealing with an injury himself, but just looked like he had lost the step, didn't have any, speed or explosion. Obviously, part of that, I think, was just the team as a whole. But, props to Andre Drummond for what he did, over the offseason, getting himself in shape. And there's Mike back in the saddle. How we doing, Mike?
Yeah, it looks like there's all sort of Twitter X outages, all sorts of crazy stuff happening. We're trying to power through. That's why we were a little late today, but sorry about that. I see you were holding it down. You couldn't get in, then they booted me out.
Yeah, I don't know. They just don't want us to be great today, Mike. I don't know what's going on. But I was just touching on Andre Drummond a little bit from that game last night. I was giving him props for, he was a guy that over the offseason, like a lot of Sixers fans, I was saying, didn't even necessarily want him to pick up his option. Like he was kind of an afterthought after the way he looked last season. And I just, I think he's been really impressive. He got in better shape, obviously hampered with an injury issue last season. The toe kind of slowed him down, but he's been phenomenal for the Sixers this year. I mean, this has been a team that struggled big time with rebounding, and he'll come in and give you 15 on a nightly basis, finishing around the rim. I've just really been impressed with, what Andre Drummond has brought to the Sixers team so far this season. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I got to agree with you. But for $5 million, I mean, you're thinking about like he was a total afterthought. He had 18 rebounds in the game last night. Think about it, 18 rebounds in the game last night. He had 11 against Detroit, 13, 12. I mean, he's got a streak of double-figure rebounds for 4 straight now. So he's a guy that they absolutely need. I mean, Bona's out right now for at least 3 games, maybe more with that ankle. And Bona's not a great rebounder. We've talked about a little bit. If you can get the Embiid, Drummond, Bona all wrapped into one guy, you would have an amazing player, a tenacious rebounder, an athletic rim protector, and an MVP-level scorer. Unfortunately, you have 3 separate guys, and Embiid's obviously out right now. But Drummond, picking up the slack last night because he played 38 minutes in that game last night. I mean, he played almost the whole game because Bona's out. They don't really have another big behind him. And, yeah, he had some key rebounds. And, the moment in that game that he got a foul called on him, he actually they challenged it, and the foul ended up being on somebody else for pushing Drummond out of the way. He's the only rebounder they got, and he's out there, clearing glass. So I think you're right. He has been a massive part of this early season start for them. And it's going to be interesting to see once Embiid is back and Bone is back. I guess it'll be more matchup based on how they use him, but he's averaging almost a double-double right now.
Yeah, Mike, and he's single-handedly taken the Sixers from being like a very bad rebounding team to at least like a mediocre rebounding team. Like you said, he goes out there and he'll get you 15 to 20 rebounds a game and single-handedly kind of shift the balance of the rebounding in that, in a single game. So he's been immensely important for a team that otherwise doesn't really have a lot of great rebounders, including Joel. So, I think he's been huge. And like you said, when all 3 guys are available, some of it will be matchup based. If they want to get up and down the floor a little bit quicker, obviously, but that's a good fit for Bona. But if you're looking for defensive rebounding and finishing around the rim in the half court, I mean, Drummond has been, really impressive.
Yeah, and by the way, hit a three,
Yeah.
hit 2 big free throws late in the game last night. He's expanded his offensive game, where he'll shoot that little three now. The one he took at the top of the key late in the game, I didn't love that shot, but he's wide open. I guess if you're going to shoot him, you got to shoot him. I'm watching Lopez last night catch the ball in the corner, one bounce to the step, and then drain it. So I'm like, all right, I guess I just got to accept that a guy that man is big is going to shoot that. But Lopez has added that to his game over the years. Drummond, not so much. He's just added that this year. But, hey, he has 14 points, 18 rebounds last night. That's a heck of an effort for Drummond. Never thought we would spend 5 minutes talking about Andre Drummond this season.
His 3-point attempts are really funny, Mike, too, because they're the classic thing. Like, if you're at the game and he takes that shot, it's like the no, and then it goes in and everyone cheers. But, every time he takes it, it's just you don't expect it. It looks a little bit funny. But credit to him for trying to add that part to his game, because in today's NBA, guys have to be able to space the floor. And after a decade of being, like, a block down low player, like the fact that he even has gotten to the point that Nick Nurse lets him fire off a couple of games, credit to him for working on that aspect. Absolutely.
Now, go back to the game on Saturday. That was an awful loss against Detroit. It's the kind of loss that you felt like, is this team starting to fall? We talked about fool's gold last week on the pod. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, trust the mics here. You can go back and listen to last week's episode. We talked about fool's gold. That Detroit game was a game where you're like, okay, they're starting to come back to reality a little bit. That's a bad loss. I know Detroit's very, very good. I think they've won 10 in a row. But they're really shorthanded. And I know you're shorthanded, but you're up in that game. You have a chance to steal a win. And then you don't only lose, you kind of got blown away towards the end. That was pretty disheartening. But for them to bounce back and get this game the way they did, that was pretty refreshing to see, because normally that game on Friday night is the precipice for a loss on Monday night.
Yeah, 100%, Mike. And I've liked to see the past couple of games. They played better in the third quarter, even in that Pistons game that they ended up losing. And then last night, they bucked the trend of, just getting completely outplayed in the third quarter every game, which I thought, even in the loss to Detroit, was at least like a promising development that, hey, like they know this is an issue. They're addressing it, coming out better. And I did think that was a game you should win when Detroit's missing. Obviously, Cade, Duran, Tobias Harris, Thompson, like 4 out of their 5 starters are not in there. That's definitely a game that you'd like to see, the Sixers pull out. But to your point, the fact that they were able to bounce back and respond with a win over that Clippers team last night, I think it's a promising sign. And look, to me, this Sixers team, they're competitive, without Joel. Are they a championship contender without Joel Embiid? No, probably not. But they can, play in these games, win some, and be competitive, which is more than we were able to say about them, in past seasons.
And quite frankly, if they would have lost that game last night, I know you're missing guys. That would have been disappointing. Clippers are terrible. They're coming off a back-to-back. That's a game that you would say, if we think we're a good team, we got to find a way to win this game. And you know what? They did find a way. Being down all night, found a way. You're right, though. The Embiid thing, I think, stands. People think they're better without Embiid. And some nights they might be. Some nights they might be able to get up and down. But when push comes to shove, how deep can you go with the team they have as constructed? They're a first-round exit. They need Joel Embiid. You guys out there better hope Joel Embiid and this knee is okay. They're saying day to day. What's the vibes for you?
Cloudy, Mike. A little bit cloudy. It's weird because how it's very tight-lipped with Joel. The main good thing was that they did the imaging and there was no structural damage there. So at least it's not like a serious concern. But the fact that we're already just a few weeks into the season and he's getting soreness and the opposite knee that he had the surgery on, it's tough to tell. Nick Nurse has given very little detail last night. He said that there was still a little bit of pain there. He was progressing well. He didn't think he was too far away, but he spoke in, pretty vague terms, didn't really provide any updates. So, I said it the first time that I wasn't necessarily concerned when he was ruled out of that Celtics game last Tuesday. But I said if this is something that stretches into the following few games, there might be a little bit of concern. So it's rising a little bit. If he's able to play tomorrow night, hopefully we'll see. But if he misses more time, I think there might be a little bit more to this than, they're letting on, which is obviously a big concern.
Remember, they have a back-to-back now, too. So this will be their 4th back-to-back of the season. Wednesday, Toronto. Thursday, Milwaukee. Then Sunday, they play Miami. So
You would think he
uh,
would be back for one of those two games, obviously in the back-to-back, not both.
yeah. Oh, definitely not both. If he plays
Yeah.
Wednesday, can he go Wednesday, Sunday, or can he even go Thursday, Sunday? I think that would be an interesting sign to see, okay, he's back on track where he's
If
not playing the back-to-backs, but we can separate him a little bit.
if he could not go Wednesday to Sunday, Mike, I think that's a little bit of concern. That's obviously like 3 full days off in between, and you're not getting more than that in a playoff series. So,
No.
you know, you think that would be a little bit of a concern if there's after multiple days of rest, if he's not able to go. It's that's a concern for sure.
The Oubre injury, while we're talking injuries, I mean, he was playing awesome. I know last night it was kind of a fit that Paul George stepped right into the Oubre spot. It'll be interesting to see when Oubre's back what that lineup looks like there. But George steps into the Oubre spot, but for how long? Oubre with an LCL injury, that's kind of murky. We don't hear a lot about LCLs. It's usually an ACL, maybe an MCL here and there. But the LCL seems a little bit like no one's telling us any information here.
Yeah, I think it might be a little bit less severe than people initially thought based off just what Nick Nurse was saying yesterday, but there was no timeline provided. I think he's definitely going to be out for a little while. And that's a bummer, Mike. To me, it's almost a similar conversation to what we just had with Andre Drummond, where there were Sixers fans over the offseason that did not want to see Kelly Oubre pick up that option, that were pretty much down on his contributions to this team. And he's been really good this season, Mike, on both ends of the floor. Like, the offense has been there as a guy that can give them buckets, but defensively, Nick Nurse has talked a lot about the effort and energy that he brings to that end of the floor. So, I mean, he, like you said, we didn't notice it as much last night with Paul George coming back, but Oubre's been really important on both ends of the floor for this team. And I think when they're at their best, it'll be with a healthy Paul George and a healthy Oubre on the wing, two guys that can contribute on both ends of the floor, two decent defenders, two scorers. Like those guys will lock down the wings for the Sixers when healthy. So I think Oubre obviously is really important, and we got to hope that injury doesn't keep him sidelined for too long. Even though it's still early enough in the season, then it shouldn't be a huge deal.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on where Edgecombe is right now? I mean, obviously he got off to this great start, and it's not me saying, man, this guy's been disappointing. I mean, 18 points against the Pistons the other night. Thought he played well at times against the Clippers. 6 assists, 6 rebounds, but the scoring has not been what we saw. So what's kind of the take on now that we have a bigger sample size of Edgecombe fitting in this team and the importance of him?
This is going to be a funny way to characterize it, Mike, but I was saying this to someone the other day. I think the fact that he can slide into the starting five on a contending team like the Sixers and kind of just fly under the radar. Like you said, no one's really talking about him much since the early couple of days, but he's playing a ton of minutes, playing good defense and fitting in offensively. And the fact that that's his floor already as a starting caliber rotation player on a contending team that can eat up almost 40 minutes a game, knock down shots and play good defense. Last week after that Celtics game, Nick Nurse talked about how he's already one of the team's best defensive players, and you can't disagree with him. He's put in the effort defensively, the athleticism, the quickness on the perimeter, and the fact that he can play off ball for such long stretches, Mike, I think is encouraging. Like, they can do so much more with him and tap into his offensive skill set, and I think they will. But for the time being, I think they're going about getting him acclimated to the NBA really good, where there's not too much on his plate, but he's in there as a starting guard on this team, playing major minutes and not sticking out in a bad way at all, obviously, which to me is really pretty impressive for a 19-year-old rookie.
Yeah, and that's why I wonder, does he stay in the starting lineup as this season materializes? Because when you get to full strength, I talked about last week, I'd like to see a lineup of Maxey, Oubre, Paul George, Watford, Embiid, give you the length, give you the athleticism, give you the shooting, and then, I know you're very small then coming off the bench, but you can stagger those guys a little bit. So I'm wondering if they're like hardcore married to VJ staying in the starting lineup here.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike, honestly, because they would have options other way. But everything that Nick Nurse has said about VJ so far this season has been, glowingly positive. He even said that, Nurse acknowledged that he could do a better job personally of kind of getting some looks for VJ within the flow of the offense, which is something that I've touched on a little bit over the past couple of weeks. He's been largely relegated to a catch and shoot guy. Yeah. And the fact that he can operate like that, I think, is a great sign, since there was questions about that coming out of college, but he's also a guy that's dynamic with the ball in his hands. Actually, I think the very first play last night, if I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and look. I think they drew up an action for Edgecombe coming off like a down screen into a curl. He didn't end up shooting, but like it was a clear effort by Nick Nurse to, run an offensive set for Edgecombe where there's a look. And I think there'll be more of that moving forward. But in the time being, for the short term, like he's out there as a floor spacer and almost like a 3-and-D guy, which is, if that's your floor as an NBA player, as a 19-year-old rookie, that's pretty impressive, I think.
That brings us to McCain, who played 5 minutes last night in that game. Barely gave him a run, which I'm a little surprised by because Saturday night I called the game. Bluecoats played the Swarm. Nick Nurse was there, as was Morey, and McCain was very active in the game. Like, it was clear they wanted him to kind of get shots. I mean, you can go check out the highlights of McCain. They're on YouTube. Just search Delaware Bluecoats, and you'll see, actually on Twitter X, just go to G League's X handle, and they have the highlights from him, or follow me at Mike Gill Show. I thought he looked fluid. He hit a 3. He had some nice passes. He looked like he was moving much better than he was. No brace. He doesn't have that bulky brace on. And I feel like he's such an important guy to kind of bring this whole thing together in that backcourt. Nights where Grimes doesn't have it, or Edgecombe's not shooting it well, or someone to be a ball handler. So I am a little surprised that they're not like giving McCain a little bit more. He actually got less burn in this game than he did when he was here the first time.
Yeah, Mike, and I'm interested to hear that. I was going to ask you specifically like how he looked on Saturday night, because in the 5 minutes of action last night, we don't see anything from him. So to hear that he looked better in the Bluecoats, at least, I guess, is an encouraging sign, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and listen, that level is definitely a step down. I mean, it's a they're up and down. There's not a lot of hardcore defense defending you, but it is a much more up and down kind of get your shots, free kind of wheeling. It's interesting because, Kennedy Chandler's their point guard down there. He's averaging a double-double in points and assists. He's averaging like 22 a game and 12 assists. Well, because McCain is there, Chandler's basically doing nothing for the first half because they're just letting McCain kind of burn. Get your shots, boy. Get your shots off here, man. He was cooking, and he had 15 points in the first half of that game, and then he didn't play in the second half of that game. But from his game on Thursday night with the Bluecoats to the game on Saturday, now I didn't call the Thursday night game, but I did watch. He looked much better on Saturday than he did on Thursday, I thought anyway. And I know it's only a couple days. Like, how can you look that much better? I think it's more mental. Like, okay, I feel like I'm getting this now. I feel like my legs are a little bit behind me. And I definitely felt like he had a better kind of jump and lift and movement on Saturday than he did at any point this season. And then for him only to get 5 minutes last night, I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird.
So I guess the thing that I don't understand with the situation is, like, it seems like it would have been logical for him to start with the Bluecoats, when he was ready for that ramp up, and to give him a couple, more than a couple games down there to get the win back, get the legs under him, and then bring him back up to the Sixers, because the way the Sixers have been using him, Mike, to your point this season, it's pretty head scratching. Like, he's not going to be able to get into a rhythm or, get the cardio and the game feel back if he's playing 5 minutes in a game and then sitting 2 games. Like, it seems like it would have made more sense you send him to Delaware and let him play for a couple weeks and fully ramp back up, and then slowly kind of integrate him back into the rotation up here in Philly. As of right now, it just seems like getting him minutes with the Sixers is not a priority for Nick Nurse, maybe not a priority for the front office, which, it's definitely a little confusing to me, I think, Mike. This is a guy that looked like, the runaway rookie of the year last year, a really good shooter, a good offensive piece. Could certainly take some of the load off of Maxey's shoulders and some of Edgecombe's minutes this season. So, it's still early. Obviously, he's still getting his feet under him, but it's definitely been a little bit confusing the way he's been used, I feel like.
I agree. Now, I don't know that maybe they didn't think he was going to be I don't know. The guy had a knee injury, then the thumb injury. I don't know how those two different, the thumb – Is that something that he's not really kind of ready to – who knows how that thumb – I think we're all thinking about his knee and not really thinking about the thumb at all because he's not shooting the ball all that well either, right? I mean, so maybe they just felt he would just jump in and be ready to play right off the bat because he was so good last year. And then saw him. I think they smartly sent him to the G and let him play. Now, he only played in the first half. I actually have the highlights here. We can throw some of the highlights up on the screen so you guys can kind of see what he looked like in that game.
Makes it a 3-point game.
We'll turn off my play-by-play. We don't need to hear myself. But if you want to just kind of see what he looked like there, there's a good take to the basket. I mean, he looked pretty fluid there. This is a little fadeaway. That's something they did all the time last year, right? That little fadeaway in the middle of the paint.
Yeah, this looks like the Jared McCain that we got accustomed to seeing. And he's playing in Delaware, no brace on the knee, right, Mike?
Yeah, he just has a sleeve on.
Okay.
That's the one before that. This is I think this is a 3 from him. Yep, this is a 3 that he buries. Catch
no
and
hesitation, shooting with confidence.
Yeah. I think this is a pass. I think a spin baseline. I mean, this is Jared McCain. This is the scoring that he gave you last year. I think this one he pitches off to that's Jared McCain right there. Like I keep waiting for him to pass because I think there is an assist that he had in there somewhere. By the way, Janai Broom played pretty well as well. He didn't get any burn last night either, but he played pretty well for Delaware on Saturday at 26 points, double-digit rebounds. MKB got booted out, but I'm sure he'll be back here in a second. But there you go. So that's why I do agree that McCain – and look, I hope maybe they're just trying to get him ramped up here. I don't know when the Blue Coats have another set of games. I think they're on the road coming up. So maybe their schedule kind of will allow them to send him back down there and get some more minutes if they're only going to use him for 5 minutes like this, just so he can continue to keep playing and get himself into some of these games here. I'll take a look at when the Blue Coats play. I'm not calling another game until December the 29th, so I'm off for about a month from calling games. So I'm not 100% sure. I'll find the Blue Coats schedule here of when they have some games coming up here. They do play Friday night in Maine against the Celtics. They play Sunday against the Celtics. They play Wednesday against Westchester, Friday. So they do have some games coming up here that he can get some more run if they want to get him into the mix. There you go. There's MKB.
Tough day for our podcast, Mike.
I was going to just play the sultry tones of my play-by-play.
It's probably better than what we got going on.
I'll tell you what, the heavy hitters were out there. Keith Pompey, Kai Carlin. I mean, the Sixer beat guys were there on Saturday night in downtown Wilmington. I was talking about Janai Broom. Looked pretty good, too. And he's interesting. You thought maybe he would be the big man last night behind Drummond. And I think one of the things with him, he did have a double-double, but he's not a tenacious rebounder. I would say right now, his offensive game, he's got that lefty 3. He will shoot the 3, but he'll put the ball back you in and score down low. But he's a I would imagine a guy that they're hoping develops the shot a little bit more of like an offensive stretch than a banger down low.
Yeah, he's interesting. He's a guy that I thought after 4 years in college maybe could come in and contribute to the roster. As a rookie, obviously he's down in Delaware now. Maybe building
back and forth.
Yeah, I don't think I don't see a role obviously for him with the Sixers this season with the depth that they have in the front court.
No, that's what I said. I thought maybe with Embiid and Bona out, maybe he would have got some quick 5 minutes in there, but he didn't even get those minutes. They went small.
Yeah, I think they've been happy with, obviously what they've gotten from Barlow and Walker. They were kind of wild cards coming into the season. I think both of those guys have contributed, and that's probably chipped in to, potentially minutes the Broom would have gotten otherwise.
Let's look at the week ahead here that you got coming up on the schedule. We talked about they play the back-to-back. They got Toronto again, who they just played last week, and that was the game that they won against the Raptors. That was a game that they won on. What was that? 130-120. So high-scoring game. They're playing the Raptors again on Wednesday. Then they'll play in Milwaukee against the Bucks. Then Sunday they take on Miami. So a 3-game back-to-back, and then the weekend there. So, it'll be interesting to see if they can get Joel to play in maybe one or two of those games. Right now, by the way, the cutoff of the play-in, the Sixers are the 6th seed. In the East, Miami would be right behind them. Milwaukee's behind them. So they got two teams. I know it's really, really early, but if you're thinking big picture about can you be a top 4 seed, you got to try to win games against Miami and Milwaukee, these teams that are all in the mix with you.
Yeah, especially Milwaukee specifically going to be without Giannis. Suffered a groin strain last night. Going to be sidelined for a couple weeks. So those are the type of games. That's a winnable game for the Sixers, Mike. And it is early, but when you're talking about standings, ultimately, like, all these wins matter, obviously, and these are the type of games that, the Sixers should be able to pull out. And obviously, hopefully, if Joel plays, we'll probably get more clarity on his status. If not later today, then probably, obviously, tomorrow before the game. And the hope is that he can go for, at least a couple of these games.
No doubt. By the way, Toronto, a team that you've beaten, is 9-5. They are ahead of you in the standings. They've been one of the surprise teams in the league. They've won 4 in a row as of this show here. So Toronto, Milwaukee, Miami, all 3 teams that are all going to kind of be in that Eastern Conference, middle of the pack mix right now. I don't know. Do you think Detroit's a runaway or they come back to the pack?
I think they come back to the pack a little bit, Mike. Obviously, a 10-game winning streak is really impressive. The Cavs are right there. I think the Knicks are really good. I think the Pistons will come back down because they're on pace now for like a 60-some win season. I don't necessarily see that coming to fruition. I think there'll be probably some competition for that number 1 seed, but boy, I mean, they've been impressive from where they came from a couple of years ago to, where they are right now.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, if you look at the Eastern Conference standings, it's literally an 11-team race for 10 spots.
Yeah.
I mean, Charlotte is dreadful. Brooklyn,
Washington,
and the Pacers. The Pacers are 1-13. They've lost 8 straight. The Wizards have lost 11 in a row. The tankorama this season for this draft class is good. Did you see the comment that one of these executives made? It said if Cooper Flagg was in this draft class, he probably would go 6th.
Yeah, that seems a little bit low to me, Mike. But I mean, the point is made. I understand. Obviously, this draft is supposed to be really, really good. So,
yeah. Well, I would assume, like, if you're the Sixers fans out there right now, there's only 11 teams in this race right now. So there's only one of these 11 that's not going to make at least a play-in. And right now, the odd team out is Boston. They are 7-7. Boston's kind of interesting to me. Like, do they want to try to be a play-in team this year, or do you just like, hey, we don't have Tatum. Now, do they think they can get Tatum back by the end of the year and make a kind of a crazy Miami run from a couple of years ago as like, a play-in team with Tatum? Or do they just kind of take this year off and get another player, a young player, to add to that mix? I mean, they're in a weird spot. But other than that, they're the only team right now that has a 500 record that is out of the playoffs. Everybody else, the top 10, and then Boston's 11, and then everybody else is tanking.
Yeah, it's going to be a dogfight, I think, throughout the rest of the season, Mike, and almost like a war of attrition. I think, obviously, health is going to be huge. If one of these teams loses a guy, they could drop down quickly. If the Sixers can get Joel healthy, they could climb back up. And to me, just to circle back to the Celtics, if I'm Boston, I'm going the latter route. I'm, quietly tanking. I know that the Celtics don't do the full-on tank thing, but even if they were able to get Jason Tatum back and let's say like March or April for a playoff run, which would be pushing it, as someone who has suffered a torn Achilles before, I know how difficult that is and how tough that recovery process is. And I'm not rushing him back for maybe a shot to get to the first round of the playoffs. Like the roster around Tatum, even if he were back, that Celtics team, it's not good enough to me to make like a real playoff run. So I would let him just get rest this season, add in a young piece next year in the draft and kind of rebuild. But yeah, you have the standings up there. It's a tight race in the Eastern Conference, Mike.
It's a tight race, but you can almost say it's only going to be these 11 teams. I mean, there's only going to be, of the teams, Philly, Miami, Chicago, the Bucks, Orlando, if you want to throw Atlanta and Knicks in there, I mean, I don't know which one of them drops to the 11th spot. I mean, but Boston, they're going to be a team to kind of keep an eye on because there's no way that Charlotte, Washington, none of those teams are getting back into this mix. So it's 11 teams for 10 spots.
Yeah, and I think there's teams like the Bulls obviously got off to a really hot start, Mike. I don't know how sustainable that is. I wouldn't be shocked to see them kind of gradually drop in the standings over the course of the season. Orlando's a weird team this year. They're obviously not as good as people thought. The offense is kind of clunky. Banchero's out right now. Hasn't been amazing. They're a team I could see falling back a little bit. Same with the Hawks. But I mean, this is obviously a pretty competitive Eastern Conference, at least early in the season at this point.
A very mediocrely competitive.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
All right, don't forget, Trust the Mike's on Tuesdays, a Sixer show. Mike Gill, MKB. Like, share, subscribe. We drop on Tuesdays right around 11 o'clock each and every Tuesday. We go live. You can get the audio version on all podcasting platforms. And, of course, you can check out the show on YouTube, on Twitter, X, all over the place. Trust the Mike's Twitter handle, at @TheRealMikeKB, at Mike Gill Show. At BFA Live Sports. Check us out all over the place. Check out the Flyer Show tomorrow with Kevin Durso. On Wednesdays, those Flyers Files. Mondays, we usually drop the Philly show as news happens in the offseason with the Phillies. We will have live Philly shows on Mondays, and we got a whole bunch else going for you here. All right, any final thoughts as we get a little day off here, then the Sixers on a back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday?
I'm just looking forward to seeing Paul George might continue to, kind of get back into the groove. I think you and I are both in agreement that what we saw from him last year isn't necessarily representative of, the player he even is at this point in time. And I think a lot of people in Philly kind of forgot how impactful he can be because last year was such a disaster. So, last night, first game back, looked okay. I think as he continues to move forward, excited to see what he can bring to this team.
I agree. If he could be what he was last year, 15, 16 points a game, that might be good enough on this team. Last year, It wasn't good enough. They needed more from him on last year's team. On this year's team, a 15, 18-point-a-game guy might be exactly what they need.
Yeah. I mean, the role's right there for him. If he can – health is the main thing, Mike. I feel like we've been saying this for a decade straight, but you get Joel healthy, you get Paul George healthy, maybe this team can make some noise in the – what did you say, the mediocrely competitive Eastern Conference?
The mediocrely competitive Eastern Conference. All right. MKB, good stuff. As always, we will check back in next Tuesday right here on Trust the Mikes, everybody, a Sixers show. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk Sixers next week. See ya.